Και είναι η καλύτερη πάσα να πάμε στον τελευταίο ομιλητή, όπου το θέμα είναι value point innovation. Γιατί αν όλα αυτά που συζητάμε στο τέλος της ημέρας δεν παράγουν αξία, μάλλον τσάμπα τα συζητάμε. Συμφωνείτε? Μπράβο. Λοιπόν, τώρα, επειδή είναι ο τελευταίος ομιλητής, μας έρχεται από το εξωτερικό, έχει ταξιδέψει σε όλο τον κόσμο, έχει ένα βιογραφικό πραγματικά, έτσι, αρκετά θα έλεγα, γεμάτο και εντυπωσιακό. Νομίζω πρέπει να τον υποδεχτούμε πριν πω όμως, καταλήλως, γιατί είναι ο τελευταίος. Last but not least, Joep. Αλλά μάλλον δεν έχουμε ήχο ακόμα. Έχουμε ήχο? Okay. Perfect. So, Joep, we are looking very forward to listen about, and actually, I dare to say that your speech it sounds like a sum up, because design or innovation without value, I think, is not worth it. So please, the stage is yours to close this day with your speech, okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you also for the applause, but I think you should give yourself a round of applause, if you don't mind. You have survived a whole afternoon, and you have stayed, so you are much smarter, much stronger, much more courageous than all the people that left. So you definitely deserve that distinction. I have the problem that I have to talk about innovation and design, but I think most of it has already been said. So probably the most important quality that a presentation can have at the end of a long afternoon like the one you have just been through is that it is short. So I will try and keep it as short as possible. I prepared a lot of slides, but please be assured we will focus only on those things which are somewhat different from or can add something to what has already been said. So I wanted to talk with you about 4 elements. First of all, purpose. Everything starts with why you do it. And I am a strong believer that at the end of the day, we want to create and capture value. And so it's critical to define that. We will talk about people. It's been said many times today, that's really the critical piece. Not just the customers or users that you are designing for, but also the people that are part of your design team, your extended design team. Then we will talk about process. Very little, again, because much of it has already been said, so we will only maybe focus on some of the essential pieces. And then we will talk about making it happen. What, based on my experience in over 100 of these design projects, what are really the crucial elements to make it happen? So, first of all, purpose. When you think about it, what is innovation about? Innovation, and why do companies exist? Why do any kind of organization exist? Why does l'abattoir exist, for example? Well, at the end of the day, they exist to create and capture value for stakeholders. And so if in a design project you cannot be absolutely clear and aligned within the team on what constitutes value, you should not start. Or at least you should start with defining what you think the value will be. The type of value can be your choice. It can be a very social project, it can be a sustainable project, it can be whatever type of project, but you have to be clear on what the value will be. And how do we create value? At the end of the day, we create value by offering the right solutions to the right people in the right way at the right time. Obvious, but that obviously has to be designed. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not serendipity. It happens because you have an intention to do so. And sometimes, if you want to get the right solution, you have to make a step change. Like the example of IQOS, which was given, that is really innovation, moving from cigarettes to a non-combustible solution. Where does this value point lie? How do you find the value point? Again, it's not the best solution in absolute terms. you find it at the intersection of what is desirable, what people want, what is feasible, what the technology allows you to do, and what is viable. Is there some kind of economic model, even if you get subsidies, will the subsidies cover the cost of what you're trying to produce? This is an example that we worked on, where through a design sprint, we developed a business which is now worth close to $500 million, so it's a respectable business. And what they do is peer-to-peer financing for MBA students. So people that have studied, that have their MBA degree, are financing people that are trying to get their MBA degree. And again, keeping the focus on the value point was critical in developing this solution. People. We talk often about technology and people, digital and people, as though they are two different worlds. They're not. The ideal solutions can be found where people and technology are synchronized. And you see this very good in the current privacy debate. As soon as technology kind of gets out of hand, it gets called back, and people say, no, that's not what we want. And so smart design is about the synchronicity between technology and people. You've seen a couple of customer journeys today, so I will not explain the principle. What is important, though, is that you focus on where the major pains are. Where are the big problems today? And where is there value in solving those problems? Or you can focus on the biggest potential gains, or a combination of both. But somewhere along the line, you have to get this customer journey right. How do you know? How do you know where you have to intervene? I think it's been said a couple of times today, but it's something that I feel very strongly about. Don't do focus groups. Don't do massive surveys where you ask 1,000 people at a time. Just go to where people work, where people play, where people live, and observe. And observe in as neutral a way as possible. Ask them to do things and look at what is working and what is not working. Get out of the building. This is a very controversial point. How many people here are studying design? One, couple, good. Not too many, so I will not insult too many people. In design thinking, the designer is not the star. The team is the star. One of the earlier speakers, excellent presentation, so no criticism of the presentation, but he mentioned Jonathan Ives. The problem with focusing on individual designers is that you have the impression that there is a Wonder Woman or a Superman out there who will find all of the solutions. It doesn't work that way. Life and design is a team sport. So the team is the star, not the individual designer. And we have seen this again in project after project after project. If you rely on one individual, it generally fails. So it's a team sport. And how do you get teams to participate? You level the playing field. And this is a very important principle because it's very easy to say that people from different backgrounds should be collaborating, should be working together. That's a very good principle, but it's not easy to do. Because depending on where you come from, depending on what you studied, depending on where you work, you have different languages. You have different ways of looking at things. And so one of the tricks that is vital to any successful collaborative design exercise is that you level the playing field. And it's one of the reasons why we like drawings. And these drawings are even too sophisticated. Very nice work by a very talented drawer, but it's even better if you let everybody draw. No matter whether they think they can draw, but you let people draw. It's one of the reasons why we use Lego bricks, Playmobil, etc., because you get people back to something that they are all very comfortable with. Everybody has played with Playmobil, Lego, or something along the way. In terms of getting people to work together, one of the things that we are increasingly finding, especially in innovation, is that it doesn't make sense in today's world to work with a fixed team. It is much smarter to adapt the team as you're moving through the project. Because what is the problem with innovation? You know what the problem is initially, but you don't know what the solution will be. And so as you're going through your design exercise, you might come across very different types of solutions. And so you will need different types of expertise. And so you should not be scared of, in the course of the project, asking new people to join, and maybe asking some people to leave. And that's a flexibility that exists today. One example of this is Bru. Bru is a worldwide textile company. It's actually leader in its market. And the CEO has done amazing work in terms of energizing the company, in terms of bringing in, building up internal expertise, but also bringing in external expertise. So what about the process? I will be very short on process because you've heard a lot of things about process today, but I think this slide is an important one. We come from a world where we have always been used to working in a very analytical way. Most of you have been to school, I assume, some kind of school, and in most schools you are taught that if you study well and you answer the question well, you will get good grades. It's a very analytical process. Whoever knows it best is the one that scores the best. It's not at all a creative process. In fact, if in school you are too creative, you will probably get very bad grades. Okay? So you can assume that 90% at least of people in the world are too analytical and not sufficiently creative. So what has happened in business is that there has been an enormous swing in terms of saying, let's be more creative. Now, if you are just creative, what happens? If you are creative for the sake of being creative, you can be a fantastic artist, but you are not necessarily going to be a good innovator. Because behind every innovation, again, is the notion of creating value. There is a purpose. And so it's very good to be analytical. It's very good to be creative. It's even better to be both. And that, in my mind, is what design thinking is about, is really combining an analytical capability with a creative capability. And not many people are this way. You are not naturally trained to be this way. Most designers will tend to be a little bit too creative. Most business people will tend to be a little bit too analytical. And ideally, you want to be something in between. Design thinking, again, it's been said a number of times. It was also mentioned by one of the speakers that it has actually appeared on the cover of the Harvard Business Review, which is the ultimate consecration. What are the critical elements? It's human-centered. Never, ever forget that. Human-centered. Again, about users, customers, but also the people in the teams. It's about co-design. It's not about one designer designing the solution. It's about a team of people designing it together. And the more people participate in the design effort, the more they will be engaged with the ultimate solution. It's experimental. And again, this is something that most people are not comfortable with. Just experimenting, trying things, and not being afraid to fail. Trying is fine if at the end of the day you learn. And it is about learning. It's not just trying for the sake of trying. Again, it's not creativity for the sake of creativity. You want to learn. You want to progress. I will not bother you with this. You will get the slide so you can look at this at ease. There are two crucial elements that we focus on. First of all, if you're ever working within your team on a design thinking project, make sure that in the beginning people are aligned on the intent. Why are you doing this? There are so many design projects which fail because people, especially at senior level, have not been aligned on the intent. And then, at the end of the process, we don't and will never design perfect products and services. All of the products, services, and other solutions that we design will evolve. Always. Always. It's no end state. It's a continuous journey. And so people are looking to design the perfect thing. It does not exist, because something can only be right within a certain context. And as you know, the context is changing very rapidly. So in your design process, you have to assume that there will be evolution. So what's the basic process? You set your direction, you're very clear on your intent, you use the best available working hypothesis, you experiment smart, and you innovate reliably and progressively. So there is a method to the madness. You're actually trying to make progress. We have actually done this with this is an application to monitor and improve your sleep, which we developed with a client in California. It's actually available on the US App Store, unfortunately not in Greece. But there we were involved from the start, working with the two stakeholders, thinking through what the product should be. Now the product is launched, but it's still evolving all the time. And we are still learning all the time. So, how do you make all of this happen? Again, important is this value point that you are aiming for. What you want to get is solution fit, market fit, and execution fit. And then there are a whole set of tools which you can use. I've looked at a couple, or I've given a couple on this slide, but tools are not the issue. Mindset is much more important than tools. So getting the team in a certain mindset is critical. At the end of the day, what you want to do as a team is you want to move forward together. So you want to have a shared decision and progression framework. That is what design thinking helps you do. Who knows this concept of minimum viable product? I see some people nodding, and the other people are too tired to nod. But this is a very important concept. Accepting that things can be good enough, and that there will be time and opportunity to improve on the product. The other concept, which is less well known, is the concept of minimum sustainable market or minimum viable market. You don't have to aim to be the next Facebook with millions of users. If you have a market that's big enough to support your product and that's economically viable, that's good enough. And you should aim for that first and then accept that you will progress afterwards. Just to give you an example of a very small-scale project, this is a project we have done with a chef, and the chef had some original ideas about, a food concept which involved, for example, an aperitif in a bag. So all of the elements for an aperitif in a bag. We developed all of this with him in a very low-cost fashion, with a lot of iterations, a lot of validations, etc., in a very, very simple way. So in and of itself, this is not an expensive process, and it is within reach of almost everybody. And then I will leave you with a statement of the world record holder of marathon running. He said something which I like. Ideally, you would have started with UX design, what was it, 5 years ago? So you would have had 5 years experience by now. Unfortunately, it's not the case. But then start today, or at least tomorrow after you've rested from this intensive afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joep. Thank you so much. Any question? Κάποια ερώτηση υπάρχει?
They want to go home.
They're gonna go home, but probably no question.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank
It's
you
been
so
a good
much.
afternoon.
Yes. Thank you. Excellent.
you.
Thank you so much.